Why did the oxygen molecule cross the cell membrane? To get inside the cell, duh. All right, this is Norse Teaches Science, starring Mr. Norse, and today we are going to talk in this biology edition of my video about the cell membrane structure. So by the end, it's I can describe and design the job of the plasma or cell membrane. Remember, it can go by either name because of who you are. I'll be referring to them either way. So let's go and figure this out. So the plasma or cell membrane, we talked about in a previous video about what its basic job is and what cells have it, but let's just talk about where it's located. In animal cells, it is the boundary between the cell itself and the environment the cell is in. You can see that here in this picture where I'm pointing out there's a cell membrane, environment, cell, environment, cell. The plant cells, it is between the cell wall and the cytoplasm. So you have the cell wall, then you have the plasma membrane, then you have the rest of the cell. So that is where they're located in the two cells. Now, we're not going to talk about prokaryotic cells, but it's kind of more like an animal cell, except animal cells have more organelles. Plasma membrane role. We already talked about his job is to maintain homeostasis. His job is to maintain a stable internal environment that is balanced. Kind of like your body has to be imbalanced. If your body's not in balance, sometimes when you're sick, you have a fever, and that's your body trying to get back into homeostasis, trying to fight off whatever infection or disease you're having. It's also plasma membrane or the cell membrane is selectively permeable. If you look at this word, this saying, selectively means picky. I'm a picky eater, so don't place broccoli on my plate. I will not eat it. Um, Permeable means to go into something. All right. So the plasma membrane's job is to be selectively permeable, keep the good stuff in, like nutrients, and get rid of the bad or harmful stuff. Keep that out, get that out. It's like a gatekeeper. It's keeping the gate to the cell for only certain things. So the model plasma membrane, you got a couple pictures over here you can look at while I go over it. It's called the fluid mosaic model. Fluid means that things are constantly moving. We're not thinking of fluid as air and water. We're just thinking of things as always moving. And mosaic means it's made of multiple different things. You can have proteins. It's made of lipids. It's got carbohydrates. It's got cholesterol. It has a whole bunch of different stuff, and it's always moving, and it's always and it's still doing its job at the same time. The membrane structure, we call the membrane a phospholipid bilayer. Phospholipid bilayer. You can see a picture here, phospholipid bilayer. You have something called phospholipids, that's the green and the brown things coming off the green. That's a phospholipid composed of phosphates and lipids. Lipid being one of those macromolecules. If you don't remember, go check out that video again. Lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. And bilayer, means two layers of these phospholipids. Other components of it are going to be the proteins, the cholesterols, the carbohydrates. You can kind of see some of that stuff already in there. They're all going to work together to maintain the function of the cell membrane. Let's talk a little bit more about phospholipid. So you have a picture of phospholipid over here. You have the head, which is the blue. It's not blue in the sense when it's a cell. It's blue in this picture. The head is called hydrophilic. We break down the word hydrophilic. Hydro means water, and philic means liking or loving. So the heads like or love water. They're polar, means they have a positive end and a negative end, and it's attracted to it's attracted to water. Water is also polar. That's why things dissolve in water when they're polar. Oil is not polar. That's why oil wouldn't dissolve in water. The tails, you have two tails. They're hydrophobic, water fearing. Um, there's other fears out there, and in class we usually just talk about some random ones that they would know, like arachnophobia. That's the fear of spiders. Um, the tails are nonpolar, and they're ordinated into the middle of the plasma membrane so that you have the heads on the outside and the tails in the middle. I talk with my hands, and you guys can't see it, but while I'm doing these voiceovers, I am actually talking with my hands. All right, so kind of clipping into the next video, we're going to talk about moving through the cell membrane. It does happen. It just depends on what particle it is, if you have to use energy or not. Small particles don't use energy like water and oxygen. The cell doesn't have to use any energy for that. It's more of a naturally occurring thing. But for large particles, they actually have to use some proteins and use energy like sugar. Sugar is larger than water and oxygen. So the cell would have to use some energy for it to get into the cell. But that's a little bit about the plasma membrane. We're going to talk in a future video about crossing the plasma membrane, the processes that are involved. But like I always say, hope you learned something. And this is Mr. Norris, and he is signing out.